Anyway. You're too late. Go back to Durban.
Huh? So our first speaker is Michael Johnson, and he'll be speaking to us about Power BI and R.
Right, guys, thanks so much for coming through. So, as I'm sure all of you are aware, Microsoft over the last sort of 30 years have built a bit of a reputation as being anti-open source. Sort of well-founded, but in the last 3 odd years, they've sort of tried to reverse that position. And one of the big things that Microsoft has certainly embraced is R. I was hoping that Niels would do his first session so I could tell you about R in SQL, but that'll be coming later now. One of the additional places that Microsoft has embedded R is in its own analytics product, Power BI. So as this is not generally a Power BI group, I thought I'd start at the beginning with what Power BI actually is. Power BI began as a collection of components from Excel. These were first instituted as a bunch of add-ons. The first of these add-ons was Power Pivot. Now what Power Pivot is a highly compressed column database that supports relationships between tables as well as named measures over this. And what this does is allows for very easy sort of self-service navigation for users over their own data. They don't really need to go around understanding dplyr or lapply, any of those kind of things. The second component was Power View. Now this sort of implemented a set of basic visualizations, sort of the visualizations that you sort of see in Excel today. Not the largest collection of data, data visualizations out there. And the final bit was Power Query. And what Power Query allowed us to do was actually to ingest data and transform it before we placed it into the Power Pivot model. So Microsoft realized that they had the sort of grounds for sort of a pretty good product, and they took that, wrapped it all up into what we now call Power BI. So Power BI comes in 2 variations. There's the Power BI desktop. As the name might suggest, this is what you can install on your local desktop. You can ingest your own data, build the models, build the visualizations, and sort of report off that. But that has a limited story because data on your desktop has a sort of limited use. What we really want to do is be able to share that data, and for that, Microsoft leverages on its Azure cloud through its Office 365 sort of product. We have this Power BI service. And what Power BI brings is all those enterprise features. So we've got role-based security, scheduled refresh, mobile reporting, these device-agnostic sort of tools. So this creates that sort of holistic, sort of end-to-end sort of framework that R might get through things like Shiny, R Studio on Server Edition. Okay, but obviously we're not here to talk about Power BI so much, but more about the integration. So when we look at the integration, there's two components of the integration. The first is sort of using R scripts as a data source. So what this means is that you can go and take all that sort of knowledge that you've built and built into these scripts, and you can just easily import it directly into Power BI. The next part is leveraging on the visualizations, which is a really handy bit. As I said earlier, Power BI's visualizations are somewhat limited. They're great because there's a little bit more functionality, but I think there's about 20 of them. Okay, so let's have a look at how that might happen. The typical Excel scenario, you're going to click on the button called Get Data. You've got multiple options for data, different types of data sources. The one that we're going to look at is obviously the R script. That's going to bring up a window that you can place in an R script. At the moment, this is just an ugly text box. You're actually going to go to something like RStudio, build your script here, and then copy and paste it in here. Microsoft does have plans for bringing in, bringing in a better IDE, so that even if it's just a launch your IDE from here button, you'll obviously specify your script. You'll see a mighty complex script I've created there. Basically imports 2 data frames. When we run the script, it'll actually show us which data frames that we had in that data set. Obviously, we don't want to necessarily bring in every data frame. A lot of those have been from the data prep, so we'll just select our final data set, and then it gets brought into the model that looks something like this. So here we obviously get, we can see the data sets as well as all the fields that that we sort of wanted to bring in. And this now makes it available to the model. We can create relationships between our R source, bind it to perhaps some sort of SQL data, bind it to a web service, whatever it is that you wanted to do. The next portion is obviously the visualization side. So in order to bring a visualization, you can see the list of visualizations Microsoft has there. We've also got the R button. When you select the R visual, you're presented with these two sort of components. The first component is the visualization itself, and the second is the R script. You obviously begin selecting the the different data elements that you wanted to bring. You can either drag them onto that pane, or you can just tick on the little boxes. And what this does is when you add these visuals to the visuals, you'll actually see it actually builds its own internal data set, very imaginatively named, called dataset, with all the fields that you've had. We then look at the script component. At this point, you can pretty much do anything that you have done. You've got here I've basically brought in the core plot library, I've transformed the data set, and then I've just rendered an image, and it's going to look something like that. Okay, just a quick idea as to what this allows you to do. So one of the things that Power BI supports is this context of filtering. So when you interact with a visual, you get this filtered effect. So I've built a little filtered effect on the transmission type, and then you get that dynamic sort of feel that happens. And that unfortunately, at the moment, the visuals, you can't go. In fact, I don't even see it coming, but you could never get that interaction going from the R visual back, because we all know it's just actually a bitmap. All right. Obviously, there's no question time, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. All right. Thank you. All right. What is that? About a minute over, I think.
You didn't even show me the sign.
Huh?